full of exclusive games.
Putting a casino right in the palm of your hand.
DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM. I ended up having a total of about 8 apps on my phone. Yeah, that was on a $2 bet.
Dustin Ritzenhein was all in when it came to gambling on his smartphone, especially slot games.
The quicker the better for me, and it was really easy to win on slots.
Dustin's phone is still filled with screenshots of winning spins, and it's those big wins that fueled his passion for playing.
Then, right after you hit that jackpot, you're like, okay, well, this can pay for this, and then you just start, okay, well, I can win this and pay for this, and it's just this roller coaster you're on.
Dustin says he got on the gambling roller coaster when he was just 9 years old.
Getting a $1 scratch off and won $100.
He says he continued to scratch the gambling itch when he turned 18 and received thousands of dollars in high school graduation money, financing several trips to Soaring Eagle Casino.
Blew all of my graduation money pretty much at the casino.
Traveling to gamble was one thing, but for Dustin, phone wagering was a game changer and quickly became a 24/7 addiction.
As I'm brushing my teeth, getting ready for work, I'm gambling. I'm gambling driving to work. I am gambling at work.
A gambling obsession morning, noon, and night.
And I'm falling asleep playing. And not even, but still gambling. It became that bad.
And the losses began to mount. Dustin says he gambled away the profits from a house he and his wife sold. He then lost his entire retirement savings.
And now I'm at a point where I'm keeping everybody in the dark. I'm lying to everybody in my family.
To try and win his way back to financial stability, Dustin says he applied for 5 different credit cards and all were approved.
I maxed out every single one of those credit cards. And now I reach the point where it's like, well, what do I do?
Dustin says it was his rock bottom and he was now desperate to find a way out.
I've never in my life had a thought of suicide until I was that deep into it.
That's when Dustin turned to his phone once again, not to gamble, but to call the state's problem gambling helpline.
Gambling disorder has the highest rate of suicide out of all addictions.
Aaliyah Lucas is a gambling disorder specialist with the State Department of Health and Human Services. She says calls to the state's problem gambling helpline have grown steadily with no signs of slowing down.
We call it the hidden addiction because you can't physically see when an individual is suffering from gambling disorder. And most times when we find out that our loved ones are dealing with gambling, they've already taken a financial hit.
You make it look exciting by, showing your friends and family, oh, I hit this big jackpot, but you're never talking about your losses.
When Dustin reached out for help, he was put in touch with Gamblers Anonymous.
It's been life-changing.
Dustin says he hasn't gambled for the past 6 months. He's now going to Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week, both in person and online.
Going to the meetings is huge, but also telling your own story, getting it out.
Dustin quickly learned his story was a lot of other people's stories, and he was not alone.
You think you can help yourself, you think you can fix it yourself, but you can't.
Dustin tells me along with going to meetings, he has blacklisted himself from all online betting apps. The Michigan Gaming Control Board has an application form where you can personally ban yourself from all online or on-site gambling. We have a link to that form on our website.
If you or someone you know may be addicted to gambling, you can call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Grab your phone and scan this QR code. We have many more mental health resources for you. We also have a list of local mental health resources on our website, WILX.com. Click on the You're Not Alone tab and the blue bar that says Mental Health Services in Mid-Michigan.
Coming up next, the story of a woman who went against her parents' wishes. She grew up not believing in the idea of therapy, but now she has a practice of her own and is encouraging other immigrants to do the same.
Mid-Michigan is no stranger to people who are breaking stereotypes and barriers. And one barrier that we are actively shattering is the stigma surrounding mental health in minorities.
Studio 10's Rochelle LeGrand sat down with a woman who 24 years ago did not believe in therapy, but now she's a true believer and urging others to take care of their mental health. Here's her story.
I remember someone asked me, "Oh, what do you do in America?" And I told them, and they were just so shocked, saying, "Do you even make money? What is that?" You know, they were asking me, they were so, in a way, disgusted on why are you doing that? Because, you know, in my culture, whatever troubles you have at home stays at home. If you want to talk to someone, either go to, you know, a pastor or pray about it, fast about it, but going to a complete stranger to talk about family, you know, that is forbidden.
Meet Rahab. She's a familiar face in downtown Lansing as a storefront owner of Nubian. She was born and raised in Sudan, a country in the northeast part of Africa.
So these are my parents. My mom and my dad, we all came here to America together.
And when she came to America, she brought along the stigmas of mental health that she was raised with.
And my family, my culture, that's weak if you have any type of mental illness.
It's a belief that echoes across other first and second generation immigrant families as well. She even admits to telling her friends and family the same thing.
You know, you should pray more, you know, maybe ask God to help you with that, you know, but that's not a solution.
Despite this stigma around mental illness, Rahab found the solution when she came to America in a college psychology class.
My graduate program, we had to go seek a therapist so we know what it's like to be on the other side of the chair. And I remember my first time going to the therapist, like talking to, and my first session I started crying. And I was like, nope, I'm not coming back again. Nope, this is it. Like I was just so like, it was just one of those things like, you're not supposed to show your emotions. You're supposed to hold everything in.
It took her some time to come around, but she realized that it was okay to show your emotions and to seek help.
But like you said, it's really one and the same where if you are physically hurt, your arm or your leg breaks, you go where? You go to a doctor, physical doctor. And so when your mental health is, you know, weak or stressed, you have anxiety, you have a crisis, you should go to a professional. So it's a different aspect of health, but it's still one and the same, physical and mental.
Rahab began practicing as a psychotherapist in 2019.
I found that to be the motivation or encouraging to kind of go into the therapy field, even though I didn't 100% believe that it would work for me.
But not only has it worked for her, in helping her clients, Rahab was also able to begin her own healing journey.
That's when I was like, wow, you know, if they can have this breakthrough and change their life, that can happen for me too.
She's making it her mission to show others that they can break the generational cycle. And now she's encouraging others to seek professional help, whether they're immigrants or they've grown up with a similar stigma.
I have, several immigrant or second generation, first generation too, immigrants that come and see me, and there's a sense of relief when they see me.
She knows that breakthroughs do not happen easily.
I think that's the most rewarding thing, when their perspective of therapy changes when they come in, when they come and sit here.
But they are possible.
My name is Rahab Musa, and I want to let you know that you are not alone. It's okay to heal.
And that was Rochelle LeGrand reporting. Remember, we have mental health resources for you at WILX.com under You're Not Alone. Coming up in our special report, the faces of alcohol addiction and recovery. Our stories are straight ahead.
Alcoholism is a disease that does not discriminate. It can affect anyone, no matter their age, race, how much money they make, or what neighborhood they live in.
It can tear families apart without hesitation. I was personally on that road until I got the help I needed. And tonight, we have inspiring stories of addiction, recovery, and hope. Actor Bradley Cooper, singer Elton John, Olympic gold medalist Michael Phelps, and author Stephen King. Sober celebrities going public with their stories. They all share something in common with common people who are also battling addiction: denial, shame, and stigma.
That denial, it eats you alive.
The problem with denial is that you don't really know that you're in denial.
It took hitting rock bottom.
A self-employed painter, a former auto worker, and a real estate agent all spent years denying they had a problem with alcohol.
I work. I have a car. I have a house. I haven't lost my job. I haven't been arrested. I'm fine.
Can we get some signatures on this?
Kathy Reddington wasn't fine. She eventually lost her job, her husband and kids, and landed in the hospital. For Mike Kenoy, it was 22 visits to detox and 11 rounds of rehab.
It took all of that for me to finally surrender.
When your father comes to the driveway and goes, "Son, I love you, but I want my key." He goes, "If you're going to live that kind of life, you can live it out there in the streets."
Ray Medrano ended up homeless and in and out of jail before finally admitting he was an alcoholic.
Denial is the one disease where you're the last one to know you have it. Now this is the wellness side.
Dr. Deborah Smith runs Wellness INX in Lansing. Over the past 12 years, the center has trained thousands of recovery coaches and helps navigate people to the best treatment options. Dr. Smith says with diseases like diabetes and cancer, people are willing to admit something is wrong physically.
Not without alcohol and drugs. It's like, I don't get it. I got it. I'm good. I got this. You know, and that's just hard because we live in a society that supports that.
Dr. Smith's expertise on the subject comes from both clinical study and personal experience. She has been sober for 21 years. The turning point for her came when a friend suggested the mounting problems in her life may have something to do with her drinking.
And I was finally at that place where, well, I'll have to think about that. And I still was arrogant, but the more I thought about it, it was me.
And that was me. Back in 2010, I was one more sick day away from losing my job here at TV10. My wife and kids were on the verge of leaving me when I finally ended the denial and admitted I am an alcoholic.
Once you arrive at that moment of clarity and you look at all the problems you have in life, they all have one thing in common, and that's your alcohol use or your drug use.
Then what scared me the most is the shame and stigma that goes along with that admission.
And you were a drunk? And yeah, me. And it's okay for me to say that, and it's okay for you to get over it.
The shame and the stigma attached to this disease, and it is a disease, is more deadly than the disease itself.
Kathy Reddington believes it's the biggest roadblock to recovery.
If we carry that shame and that stigma, nobody talks about it. Nobody's going to want to get help.
And all are in agreement. No one can survive alcohol and drug addiction alone.
With the combination of God and church and family support and a 12-step recovery program, I have restored many relationships in my family.
And for recovering alcoholics, the date of our sobriety is like a second birthday.
April 26th of 2005.
September 13th of 2001.
My sobriety date is August 18th, 1990.
February 15th, 2024. I have 10 years sober.
January 20th, 2010. This past weekend, I celebrated 14 years of sobriety. And for all of us, it's about moving forward and giving back. Mike Kenoy co-founded and runs Endeavor House, a long-term recovery house for men. Kathy Reddington helped establish Angie's Place, a recovery house for women. And Ray Medrano, a walking, talking 12-step program who has helped many people find sobriety and maintain it, including me. All of us publicly telling our story so that someone out there struggling with alcohol and drugs, in denial, afraid of the stigma, knows you're not alone. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction or in crisis, help is available. We also have a list of local mental health resources on our website, WILX.com.
Struggling. You know, we struggle every day. My wife and I, when we get up, we put on a mask and go to work and pretend that everything's okay.
Coming up, a former football coach raises awareness about suicide after his star athlete's son took his own life. News 10's Fred Heumann shares Brady's story when we return. He was once a star athlete at Ithaca High School. He had a great group of friends at college, but Brady Hesbrook was living with a painful secret. He was struggling with mental illness.
Brady Hesbrook took his own life. He was 20 years old. Now Brady's family has created a foundation to honor his life. News 10 co-sports director Fred Heumann has their story.
In late January 2023, Brady Hesbrook was found on the floor of the bathroom of his family's home in Ithaca.
My wife Christy had got home at 3:30 and she called and she goes, "Hey, Brady's car's in the garage." And Brady didn't have a garage door opener and didn't have any reason to be parked in the garage. Didn't really have any reason to be home that weekend. I said, "That's great." You know, 2 minutes later she called me back. She said, "You need to get home." And I ran out of the office as fast as I could and I got home and had my wife go and call 911. And Brady was in the bathroom.
That tragic morning was 14 months ago. So, if you ask the former longtime Ithaca coach how he's doing now,
struggling. You know, we struggle every day. My wife and I, when we get up, we put on a mask and go to work and pretend that everything's okay.
This is the field where Brady Hesbrook starred as the Yellow Jackets' 3-year starting quarterback, a team captain who went on to play football at Wayne State, a successful, seemingly happy kid whose hidden troubles ended his life. The pain is there the rest of your life?
Absolutely, every day, every minute. There are days when you wake up and you think for a minute, for a second, that it's a bad dream, but it's not.
That bad dream turned reality has prompted Terry Hesbrook to take action, to help others. Terry frequently speaks to parents and students at schools around the state.
And maybe, just maybe, we're helping somebody. And if we can help somebody, we have to. I don't want anybody else to have to go through this, if it can be avoided. And he was jersey number 4. We came up with the B4 Foundation, and so what our intent is to do is, before you hurt yourself or hurt those that love you, reach out to somebody. That day, Brady Hesbrook drove right past this office. You know, I'm sitting right in that desk right there, and went home and took his life. Had he turned to the right, reached out to our high school principal, maybe he's still here, but he didn't. And I want people to know that there's help available. There are people but you have to speak up.
One of Terry's main messages in his speeches is that suicide is not necessarily a choice.
Our son was ill, and it's a disease. The poor mental health, the anxiety, the depression, you know, that's all disease. It's a disease we can't see, you know, and if you break your arm, I can see you're hurting. You know, if you break your leg, I can see that you're hurting. We couldn't tell that our son was hurting. Brady wore a mask to hide his pain, right? And now here, Christy and I put on a mask, and you pretend everything's okay. Isn't that ironic? You know, he wore that mask to hide his pain, and now we're doing the same thing.
The B4 Foundation's mission is to promote mental health awareness and suicide prevention through education, advocacy, and community service. The organization also provides an annual scholarship to a student athlete who shows greatness in their school and community.
Coming up in our You're Not Alone special, the story of another man who lost his son to suicide. Hear how he says the stigma of mental illness stops minorities from getting the help they need. We'll be right back.
Now to the story of a father who turned his anger into advocacy after his son took his own life.
Dominique Fisher was diagnosed with mental illness. He was also getting treatment, but ultimately the pain was too much to bear. I spoke with Dominique's dad about mental health hurdles in the minority community.
and this was his senior year. He's catching a touchdown just as he crossed the goal line.
Kevin Fisher's rec room in Plymouth is lined with posters of his oldest son Dominique's athletic achievements in football, baseball, and basketball.
I'm really grateful that we took so much video and we took pictures and those kinds of things, because for the most part, I can look back on his life and there are happy thoughts.
Troubling thoughts began creeping in back in 2007 when Dominique was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia.
Dominique didn't choose it. Dominique didn't wake up in November of 2007 and say, I want to play crazy. I want to drop out of life. I want to be a burden on society.
Over the next 3 years, Dominique suffered from a deepening depression, causing Kevin to eventually quit his six-figure job to take care of his son full-time.
Took him to therapy 4 days a week, made sure he took his medication.
But then at the age of 23, Dominique hit a roadblock in his recovery.
The barrier came when friends and family found out about his diagnosis. And there were people who said, don't let anybody tell you you're crazy. Don't take that medication. You don't know what's in it.
Kevin says Black America has a long-standing mistrust of the medical system and strongly rejects the idea of mental illness.
And in the African American community, you're not going to tell me I'm crazy.
In early 2010, Dominique stopped taking his prescribed medication and began self-medicating with alcohol and marijuana.
He said, Dad, I would rather people think I'm high than for them to know that I take medication for mental illness.
3 months later, Kevin got the call he was dreading.
I was standing in line in Macy's buying him some clothes at the time, and I got the call, and it's over. Yeah.
The end of Dominique's life changed the course of Kevin's. After going through a year of depression, even planning out his own suicide, Kevin turned to a support group that included parents who were also coping with losing a child to suicide.
And there were times that I would mention that I lost my son to suicide, and people would, kind of shy away. Yeah. But that didn't happen at NAMI.
NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization helping people cope with mental illness. Kevin went from volunteering at the Michigan chapter in Lansing to becoming its statewide director in 2014. His mission was simple.
It became trying to prevent the next Dominique.
And part of that meant trying to convince the minority community that mental illness doesn't discriminate.
Mental illness is not a choice. It's not a weakness of faith or character. Mental illness is a medical diagnosis. It's a chemical imbalance in the brain. It's not your fault.
And he wears his sentiment on his shirt. Everybody versus stigma.
And we eliminate the stigma by normalizing the conversation. We're in the stigma busting business.
Printing them in his basement, Kevin has turned thousands of people into walking billboards. Wearing one on a shopping trip to a local Meijer proved his point. We eliminate stigma by creating conversation.
And one lady stopped me and she said, "What's stigma?" And I explained in this case, because stigma has a broad definition. But I said, in this case, I said, I'm a mental health and suicide prevention advocate. And as soon as I said something about mental illness, she said, "Oh, I got a nephew." And as she and I were talking, another passerby heard me mention something about suicide prevention. Long story short, in about 10 minutes, we had a crowd of about 20 people standing around me. We blocked 2 checkout lanes. And I told my wife, I said, this was the intent that I was seeking.
If you need to get the conversation going and talk to someone about mental illness, we have a link to the National Alliance on Mental Illness at WILX.com.
Still to come, the struggles of mental health in athletes after a career-ending injury. Hear how new programs are helping former student athletes find success after sports. That story next.
When athletes experience a career-ending injury or graduate from school, many tend to struggle with their mental health.
Studio 10's Nicole Buckman sat down with former Michigan State athletes and current counselors and shows us the resources available.
I was very known for volleyball, and my whole world was volleyball.
Michigan State senior Leah Moore began her career on the court in middle school.
I started to play for my middle school, but then my friend, she was like, why don't you come out and play for like club volleyball? It's like AAU travel. And she took me to tryouts, and then like the coaches, they were like, she has to play here. I had a lot of natural talent, and then they added skill on top of that. And I was like, okay, like this is my thing.
It became her only thing, practicing every day.
All of my weekends were gone. I was playing volleyball. Like it was just a 24/7 volleyball.
Her skills caught the eyes of universities across the country, but she committed to MSU as an 8th grader.
They say I had the 4 years to prepare, but the pressure was really high for me.
She tells me that the pressure to perform continued to increase once she officially became a Spartan athlete in 2020.
You can't just go into the game and just play. You have to, study the other team's tendencies so that you can beat them, so you're not caught off guard by anything.
However, as Leah continued to work harder and harder, she was completely caught off guard by a heart complication.
I was working out and I started to notice that my heart was beating really, really, really fast, and like I couldn't breathe, I couldn't really catch my breath. I was starting to black out a little bit, and it was starting to happen more frequently.
After 2 surgeries and heart monitoring, Leah heard the devastating news that she could no longer play volleyball.
It kind of felt like my whole world came crashing down.
Although the team and coaches still surrounded and supported her, Leah tells me that she felt a shift in her mental health.
Felt like an outsider looking in. It was just a little distant. I didn't really open up much to people about like how I was feeling.
Associate directors of the Student Athlete Wellness Center say that these feelings of grief, loss, anxiety, and depression tend to follow a major life change.
Once they stop playing sports, a lot of mental health issues tend to happen because a lot of your identity and who you are gets wrapped up into your sport, and then you're left with an existential crisis of like, who am I without this sport in my life? And so a lot of people find themselves lost in so many ways, and then from there it can just have a huge impact on day-to-day functioning.
To help athletes find their way, the MSU Student Wellness Center keeps their doors open for current students and now alumni through their new State of Mind program. This initiative offers mental health assistance to all alumni student athletes and their families through a dedicated 24/7 call line, preferred access to select clinical programs, and a nationwide network of providers.
Start identifying other aspects of yourself that can bring you just as much success as sports can. Don't realize that we often have these other intangible skills because we're so programmed to believe that our physical attributes is what's most important. And so the sooner the better you get in, just you identify that, you're pretty much setting yourself up for success beyond athletics.
And whether you're a collegiate athlete or a high school student athlete struggling with life after sports, Leah and the Spartan community will always be on your team.
My name is Leah Moore, retired MSU volleyball player, and I just want to let you know that you are not alone in your mental health struggles.
And the number for the dedicated concierge call line for former student athletes is 855-2-SPARTY, and you will get personalized assistance and immediate crisis support.
As for Leah, she found joy in cooking after sports. She now hosts the Green Cuisine, a vegan cooking show.
For years, Endeavor House Ministries has been helping men struggling with addiction turn their lives around. Coming up next, the story of how Angie's Place is making recovery a reality for women too, by giving them a safe space.
For years, Endeavor House Ministries has been helping men recover from addiction in a safe environment. Women have not had their own safe space until now.
Angie's Place offers women a space where they can focus solely on their recovery. Claudia Sella spoke to the people making it all possible.
Substance abuse is often described as a domino effect, impacting the lives of everyone around those who struggle. But the same is true when it comes to recovery. Peggy Gillespie knows this all too well.
Mike Kenoy, who is the executive director of Endeavor House Ministries, is my nephew. And I am so proud of the road to recovery that he has had and the journey that he has had, the part that he gives back. This is his passion, is to be able to help the men and now the women in recovery. How can you not? How can you not? I mean, you just get attracted to that passion and say, what can I do?
Today, Peggy and Mike share that passion. And that's exactly why Peggy got involved with Endeavor House Ministries.
One of the things is that Endeavor House Ministry, nobody knew about them. So I said, my 2 goals, I'm going to get you on the map. I'm going to let everybody know what Endeavor House Ministry is and how important it is to have it in the community. The second was to get Angie's Place open.
Soon, both Peggy and Mike will see that happen. Angie's Place is a transitional housing program for people in recovery from alcohol and substance abuse. Endeavor House Ministries has been helping men in the area with recovery, but haven't been able to expand their work to women until now.
There are hardly any houses, period, for women. It's unfortunate, but there are very, very few and far between.
Angie's Place provides women with a space where their sole purpose will be to focus on their recovery. It's a clean, clear space just for women to recover with other women.
We talked about it, what we wanted them to feel. We want them to feel safe. We wanted them to feel like this was a clean, safe, God-filled environment for them to be able to grow, to put their worries away. They don't have to worry about where their food's going to come from, where they're going to sleep. They just have to worry about getting themselves healed. And we're going to be with them step by step. We have a gathering space up by the bedrooms. We have a gathering space that I'm standing in. We have an office behind me where they can filter off and go with their own thoughts. And we encourage that, but we need to help them heal. And I think we gave them a good place to start. And God willing, and with God's help, that strength will continue.
There's no question. The work that will be done here will be hard. But this space will let women work through it together.
They talk about the sisterhood of the group because they're not in it. They're not the only one that's going through this. They draw strength not only from God, but by the person beside them. And there's such a strength to be gained from that.
We want them to know that there's a place and that they can come that is lovely to live in, but also would give them a sense of what their worth is. Being equipped across the board with everything they need to achieve that purpose, that's what this is all about. That's just a house. Until we do the things in the house that are going to help achieve that goal, I mean, from here moving forward, they can expect to live this way if that's what they choose. And so that is so exciting to me.
I'm so proud to be part of this.
And that was Claudia Sella reporting. In the city of Jackson, one man's mission is also to help people with recovery. Mike Hurst watched his son, Andy, struggle with addiction for years. He went to rehab 3 times, overdosed 4 times, and that 4th one claimed his life. Mr. Hurst founded Andy's Angels to help raise money for people in recovery. He also founded Andy's Place. It operates like any other affordable housing complex. The only requirement is that you have to go through the drug court.
You really got to build somebody's self-worth and self-esteem back up and let them know that they are somebody. They are somebody special, as a matter of fact, and we're not going to give up on you.
We have more information about Andy's Place under the You're Not Alone section at WILX.com.
Coming up on our You're Not Alone special, the story of a man who lost it all and then fought back, not just to get his life back, but to build a new life for his young family.
As we come to the end of our special, we have the story of a man whose addiction took him to rock bottom.
But with family support and treatment, he has turned his life around and is now giving back by helping others get sober. Take a look. Jared Barron was a high school superstar, a varsity athlete, a valedictorian with big dreams and a bright future.
I was high school president, class president, National Honor Society president, got through college with honors, got through law school with honors, and began to practice law and did really well.
Barron opened his own law office and started a successful career until his drinking became an addiction.
Alcohol led to drugs, and drugs brought me down. And as a result, I lost every part of myself that mattered.
The fall was hard. Family tried to help, but Jared was on a path that would leave him broke and homeless.
I was painfully aware of how far I had fallen.
That fall led Jared to the very place we met, under the Oakland Avenue Bridge on Lansing's Riverwalk, a place Jared once called home. He spent nights in shelters, ate out of dumpsters, and begged for money to feed his addiction.
Back when I stayed under this bridge, I wasn't sure what the future would hold. I wasn't sure if there would be a future. It's hard to imagine being where I am today. At that time, it seemed impossible.
What seemed impossible was possible, but it would take years and a lot of work to get there.
On my worst day, there was still hope. I just didn't always see it.
Jared was in and out of rehab trying to get sober. It was during that time he met Carrie, who worked in a drug treatment program.
We started talking, and I just enjoyed his personality, and he was fun to be around, and he seemed to, love God and serve God, and there we were.
They fell in love and got married, but Jared's addiction would resurface and eventually come between them. Their first baby was on the way when Jared had a relapse and Carrie left him.
I said, you have to do anything and everything to get sober, and then we can talk about being together again.
And she basically said she wasn't going to raise a child like this, that she wasn't going to someday tell a 2-year-old why daddy didn't come home last night. And my heart just broke. And so I had to find a way.
That breakup would be the catalyst for Jared's recovery.
I surrounded myself with people who knew more than I did, who were more successful than I was. We made a plan, and I stuck to it. I did a whole bunch of stuff that I really didn't want to do.
He was in a group home getting treatment when his first son was born. Jared had a job and worked hard to regain his life and his young family.
When I sought the help and received it, I had to rebuild everything. Personal, financial, emotional, social, everything. My career, and I'm still building.
He just took steps every day to, show me that he really did want to be, the sober man, the sober dad, the sober husband. And now, he's been sober for almost 10 years, and he continues to support the recovery community in many ways.
Look what the cat dragged in.
Jared and Carrie now have 2 sons, a family with faith and a lot of hope for a bright future.
Your ability to envision a greater future grows the longer you stay sober and consistently do the things you're supposed to do.
And Jared is on the board of Families Against Narcotics, Okemos and Ingham County. He says he is in a unique position to help others fighting addiction, and he doesn't take it lightly.
Now, he was disbarred during his addiction and is now working to get back his license to practice law. Thank you so much for joining us for our You're Not Alone special. If you are ever in a mental health crisis, you can call the suicide hotline at 988.
Just remember,
You're
not
alone.
alone.